delight. Is there a need for what you want to sell or do? Are you prepared to fill that need? Are you interested in the area? Can you learn what you need to do? Will there be a continuing and growing need for your product or service? Well, most of all, you've got to be patient. True entrepreneurs are creative, and if your business idea is not proven at this point in time, another idea is going to pop in your head, believe me. So be patient and wait for the right idea that will earn you money. What are your chances for success? Going into business now has so many advantages. At the same time, there are disadvantages, and the most important being failure. New businesses are always being started. Almost as many are failing or being discontinued. A year of poor business conditions is likely to be followed by a greater than average number of failures or closings. A year of good business conditions tends to be followed by large increases in the total number of businesses. In general, the number of firms increases with the increases in human population, total personal income, and per capita income, and since these factors have increased regularly, the total number of small business usually rises every year. This growth is not free of growing pains, however. At the same time new businesses are being born, other businesses are being discontinued. Some of these discontinuances are legally business failures. Other owners give up to avoid or minimize losses and are not failures in the strict sense. Still, others discontinue for reasons such as the death or retirement of the proprietor, the dissolution of a partnership, or the sale of a business to a new owner. Younger businesses tend to discontinue first. Many businesses do not make it through the first year. The discontinuation rate of those that survive through the first year burn-in declines steadily until the end of several years. The rate has dropped dramatically. So your chances of success improve the longer you stay in business. Poor management is the largest single cause of a business failure. Year after year, the lack of managerial experience and aptitude has accounted for around 90% of all failures. This was analyzed by Dun & Bradstreet, an information firm which seeks to prove business strengths and weaknesses. Prepare yourself for success. Many factors adversely affect individual firms over which owners have little control. In such cases, the astute manager can often soften the blow or sometimes change adversity into an asset. Examples of factors over which the owner has little control are overall poor conditions, relocations of highways, sudden style changes, the replacement of existing products by new ones, the local labor market. While these factors may cause some businesses to close, they may represent opportunities for others. A local marketplace may decline in importance at the same time a new shopping center is located in the area. Sudden changes in style or the replacement of existing products may bring trouble to certain businesses but open doors for new ones. Adverse employment situations in some areas may be offset by favorable situations in others. Ingenuity in taking advantage of changing customer desires and technical improvements will always be rewarded. In the final analysis, everything depends on you. Will your management be competent? Will you be able to judge and then satisfy your customers' wants? Can you quickly do this and accurately do this to compensate for any losses that could come your way? Such accomplishments require expert management. Therefore, you must look at your return on your investment. Will the rate of the return on the money you invest in your business be greater than the rate you could receive if you invested your money elsewhere? Think about it. While your decision to go into business for yourself may not depend entirely upon this, it is a factor which should interest you. Too frequently, people invest money in their own businesses under the misapprehension that the financial return will be far greater than the return from other investments. Investigation of the average annual returns in the line of business in which you are interested may be worthy of your time. Your decision to go into business may not depend entirely on financial rewards. The potential return on your investment may be overshadowed by your desire for independence. The chance to do the type of work that you would like to do and the opportunity to live in part of the country or city that you prefer, or the feeling that you could be more useful to the community than you would be if you continued working for someone else. Don't overlook such intangible considerations, but remember, you cannot keep your own business open unless you receive an adequate financial return on your investment. So how do we measure our financial investments? Cash planning. The first question you want to answer is, how much money will I need? But this question can't be answered until several other questions are answered and several decisions are made. To decide how much money is needed to start a business, enter all your potential income and all of your planned expenses on a worksheet or form. Even though you may feel this kind of planning is more than you need to start a simple small business, it's useful to get started with this approach to manage, which puts figures down in black and white. You will find the same approach valuable in an established business. First, estimate your sales volume. This will depend on the total amount of business in the area, the number and the availability of competitors now sharing that business, and your own capability to compete for the consumer's dollars. Obtain assistance in making your sales estimates from wholesalers, trade associations, your banker, and other business people. Several businesses and statistical publications may be useful in making sales volume estimates. In reaching your final estimate of sales, don't be over-enthusiastic. A new business generally grows slowly at the start. If you overestimate sales, you're likely to invest too much in the equipment and initial inventory and commit yourself to heavier operating expenses than your actual sales volume will justify. Since you're just starting up, your actual sales volume will be slow for the first few months. At any rate, you can expect your first few months to have low income. You must also determine what proportion of your sales will be cash and what proportion will be sold on credit. If you estimate that a certain proportion of the sales will be on credit, you must figure when you're going to get the money for these sales. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe never. Next, estimate how much cash will be paid out. Remember that in starting a business, you may be purchasing equipment, paying fees and licenses, making deposits on leases, utilities, and so on. Several months before you open the door, some of these expenses are easy to estimate. If you have decided to lease a building, then you know what your deposits will be and how much you will have to pay out each month. You can probably get cost of fees, licenses, and other utility deposits with a few phone calls. Other expense figures may take a little more work to get. One way is to obtain typical operating ratios for the kinds of business in which you are interested. Among the sources for such ratios are Dun & Bradstreet, trade associations, publishers of trade magazines, specialized accounting firms, industrial companies, and colleges and universities. The typical ratios for your type of business multiplied by your estimated sales volume will serve as benchmarks for estimating the various items of expense. However, you do not rely exclusively on this method for estimating each expense item. Verify and modify these estimates through your investigation and quotations in the particular market area where you plan to operate. Most importantly, don't forget to pay yourself. You may need money to live on if you have quit your job. If your spouse is working and can support the family for a while, you may not have to withdraw money from the business. The longer you can go without taking money out, the quicker you will build up a strong cash position. Now that you have estimated your cash receipts and expenses, write down the amount of the cash that you will be able to put in the business to start up. So how do we get the money? Now that you've computed your initial capital requirements, where will you get the money? The first source is your personal savings. Then relatives, friends, or other individuals may be found who are willing to venture their savings in your business. Before obtaining too large a share of money from outside sources, remember you should have personal control of enough to assure your ownership. Once you can show that you have carefully worked out your financial requirements and that you can demonstrate experience and integrity, a lending institution may be willing to look at your case. They may be willing to finance a part of your operating needs. This may be done on a short-term basis, or it could be done over a long period of time. Any institution that has money to lend is primarily concerned with security. The security may be a business asset, it may be your home, or it may be some other personal asset that you would secure the loan with. The second thing the lender will want to see is some sort of business plan. If you complete a business plan, make sure that you include cash flow forecast. The lender will see that you have done some serious, realistic thinking about your business and be more likely to consider your request. When you deal with your banker, sell yourself. Whether or not you need a bank loan, make it a practical effort to visit your banker at least once a year. Openly discuss your plans and difficulties. If the bank's business is in